What is happening to this world? This is crazy. So one of my favorite companies in the whole wide world, Apple, has finally entered the crypto sphere. So to quote my favorite internet troll of all time, in retrospect, it was inevitable. I'm just kidding. I love Elon, but he doesn't actually watch my videos. But here's the crazy part about that tweet, about it being inevitable. This is going to blow your mind. So his company Tesla is one of the most hated companies on Wall Street. People of all sorts, from short sellers to hedge funds to the Wall Street types, used billions of dollars to short the Tesla stock. In fact, it got so bad that Elon made a pair of red short shorts just to make fun of the short sellers. But here's the plot twist. Because Elon and Tesla bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. So in retrospect, yes, it is inevitable that Bitcoin should succeed because that purchase made the price of Bitcoin go up by several $1,000s. But that's not the real message. The real message is the fact that that purchase triggered a short squeeze of $602 million. The same thing that happened with GameStop, except this time with Bitcoin. But that wasn't the only time that this happened. Last month, when Elon put that Bitcoin logo on his Twitter, that triggered another short squeeze of $612 million, which is how much money the short sellers lost. So it's almost like this tweet is a subtle message to these short sellers that by going against a means that you will probably lose. So in retrospect, it was inevitable. Ooh, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about that. I feel like I'm reading way too much between the lines, but I'm just gonna believe all of that was true. Let me know if that's true, Elon. He's never gonna respond. So I've been saying this for a while now, but companies from the S&P 500 have been buying crypto, Bitcoin specifically, for a while now, since as early as 2017, when, if you remember, the price went to $20,000 because that is what got the world's attention. That's what started it all. But here's the thing. Empires are not built overnight when everyone is talking about the sky-high prices. Instead, businesses and developers build when there's opportunities. And for the last 4 years, since that last crash, Bitcoin lay silent. It was dormant, building its network effect, while smart money realized the actual narrative of what Bitcoin actually was. So it continued to build that network, making it easier for those people with the billions of dollars to buy into it. So now we're finally seeing the result of all that hard work play out and unfold in real time, which is why you're seeing companies like MasterCard and like Apple finally enter the space and make it public. So where are we going? Should I still buy Bitcoins at $50,000? That's what we're gonna talk about, so let's just get into it because we've got a lot to catch up on. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the goosebumps. No, I'm just kidding. I'm running out of ideas. But here's what's crazy. Besides Apple and besides MasterCard that happened, it was a huge catalyst for Bitcoin, not only for the price, but also for its future. Because BNY Mellon Bank, this is America's oldest and most traditional bank that has finally started to get into crypto. And the reason that this is such a huge deal is because their reputation is known to be very traditional and very conservative. So it's almost like somebody like Graham Stephan buying into Bitcoins, which he did, which I'm just gonna take full credit for right here and now. You're welcome, bro. I'm just kidding. I know you did your own research, just like I told you to. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, this story was actually something I saw from Anthony Pompliano's newsletter, which was originally broken by the Wall Street Journal, which is where BNY Mellon said that they will now hold, transfer, and issue Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on behalf of its asset management clients. In time, BNY Mellon will allow those digital assets to pass through the same plumbing used by managers' other more traditional holdings, from treasuries to technology stocks, using a platform that is now in prototype. I don't know about you, but whenever I read press releases like that, I have to reread that stuff like 3 times. It goes from one ear out the other because they use language that most normal humans don't use. But in so many words, what this means is, if you remember the OCC, which is a part of the Treasury that regulates the banks, they issued a statement earlier saying that they will allow these banks to participate under a regulatory framework, which is just a fancy phrase that means that they will basically allow the banks to participate in the crypto and Bitcoin space while protecting not only the banks, but also the customers under a financial and legal standards. So basically, this is huge news. This is a green light for these banks to participate, which means in the future, you can go to your local bank and say, hey, I bought some Bitcoin. Can you please deposit it into my savings account? To which they would respond, sure. And it's gone. No, I'm just kidding. They wouldn't say that. They'd probably say something like, Why would you do that? We'd only give you a 1% interest rate, which means your money's probably going to lose to inflation. Instead, go to BlockFi.com/Andrei, where you can get up to $250 worth of free Bitcoin, where that account can get you up to 8.6% interest on your money, which is way more than the measly 1% we would give you. That would be weird if they said that. They wouldn't say that, but you get the idea. The link is below the video. Now, but jokes aside, the bigger impact isn't about you and me, the ordinary customer. Now, the bigger impact is the fact that these banks will be able to create their own stablecoins. So stablecoins, if you remember, are attached to the dollar one for one. So we can have something like BNY Mellon stablecoin that is worth $1. Because right now we have things like the USDC and Tether, and that's not very good because that Tether one is kind of sketchy and it's not regulated. So this would be the real deal, which means crypto loans are going to start to become a thing. But the one that I'm personally the most excited about is something called asset digitization. So imagine if you own a house. Nope, sorry, I'm a millennial. Lost you at owning a house. All right, so imagine you're not a millennial and you own a house. But instead of selling it like you would traditionally, you would create a token. So I live in Las Vegas, but I want to invest in Hawaiian real estate because Hawaiian real estate isn't local. It's almost global because everybody wants a piece of it, and it's limited because it's on an island. But I don't necessarily want to buy an entire house there because I live in Las Vegas and I don't want to deal with all the headache and the hassle of, being so far from my property. But I also don't want to buy a REIT stock because that might limit me to commercial properties, and that's not what I want either. I want residential property. More specifically, I want this house because that house is sick. Pocket doors, oceanfront property, right in front of the Mokes, Kailua. That's the place I really want to live. But I cannot afford. So instead, I might want to buy tokens of that house, and now my investment will grow in relation to however much that house is growing by. And at any time, I can basically sell my shares or my tokens to somebody else, and I can pull out thank you, at any time and make profit. So that is cool, and that's not just limited to real estate because this is happening already in real time with the collectibles market, for example. We're seeing it with Pokemon cards, we're seeing it with antiques, and I can totally imagine a world where we can see human beings even issue their own tokens, like Mr. Beast or Logan Paul, who can create their own tokens so that we can invest in them almost like they are a corporation. And it's just so many endless crazy possibilities. The world is really gonna change. I'm super excited about it. But besides that, and besides Apple and MasterCard, there's something else that happened, which is pretty crazy. Miami happened. On Friday of last week, Miami got official approval to integrate Bitcoin into the city. So this is massive, and it means 4 things specifically. So number 1, it means that the city of Miami will actually have to buy some Bitcoin and convert some of its cash reserves, because if it wants to provide enough liquidity for the people of Miami to actually interact and use it, it needs to have some of it on its balance sheet. So it kind of forces their hand to do that. I don't know if they know that, but I'm sure they do. And number 2, it actually gives people the choice to pay out their city fines and their taxes in Bitcoin. So that is massive. And number 3, and this is the biggest of all of these, is that employees will actually be able to be paid out a portion of their salary in Bitcoin. So all of this is massive. Oh, and number 4, Miami becomes the first official city of the United States to buy a ticket to the moon. So check this out.
The city of Miami supports efforts to make Bitcoin an acceptable currency for us to potentially invest in the future. It's wonderful to be a very crypto-forward city in the city of Miami, and I want to thank my commission colleagues for allowing that to happen.
There's no particular reason why I wanted to show you that clip, other than to say that the mayor of Miami legit looks like a character out of Grand Theft Auto. I love that game. But beside that, Venmo also announced that it was going to integrate Bitcoin as well, which means that in just a few months, we'll probably be able to buy Bitcoin, but definitely use it through the app. And in a lot of ways, it was forced to do that because it needed to keep up with PayPal's announcement about it integrating Bitcoin as well. So now we've started this race against time where all of these companies have started to compete against each other to integrate these cryptocurrencies to have an option for their customers. But all of this to say that these dominoes that are falling has eventually led Apple and MasterCard to finally enter the cryptosphere. So let's just start with MasterCard, because ever since Bitcoin started gaining popularity, people would just always compare the Bitcoin network to the MasterCard and Visa network. And we would argue about how do we scale the technology? How do we scale Bitcoin? So It's kind of ironic that now MasterCard has integrated Bitcoin into its network. But I'll be real with you and say that this is not the same as MasterCard buying Bitcoin and adding it to its own balance sheet. Instead, what MasterCard chose to do is basically integrate it to give their customers a choice for the merchants to be, integrating Bitcoin and accepting Bitcoin payments. But they're not actually buying it like Elon Musk and Tesla did. But maybe I'm naive and there's something I don't understand, but it seems like if a company wants to enter the crypto sphere and it wants to get into Bitcoin, it has to have some liquidity. It can't just start from zero if it wants the product to work smoothly. Because think about it, if you're a payment processor like MasterCard, and you have chargebacks and theft and things you have to resolve, you can't just have no Bitcoin. You need to be able to account for those things. So it's gonna be interesting to see how MasterCard chooses to resolve this. But one of the workarounds for this is for a company to partner up with another company that has those systems already in place, which is exactly what Apple chose to do. And that's really the biggest announcement of all. Now you'll actually be able to spend your Bitcoin with Apple Pay. Much wow. So this is awesome, but just like MasterCard, Apple did not actually buy Bitcoin and add it to their balance sheet. Instead, they're integrating it into Apple Pay. So it's not like you think it works. It's not like Apple Pay is talking directly to the blockchain. Instead, Apple partnered up with a company called BitPay. And BitPay has been around forever, since the beginning of crypto, and you can think of them as sort of like a payment processor / middleman, because BitPay is using the Visa network, where they issue their customers a BitPay debit card. So you can load your Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash onto that, and then you can spend it anywhere that BitPay is accepted. But the problem is that not everybody accepts BitPay. It's such a niche kind of a debit card. So instead, Apple will now let you load the BitPay debit card onto Apple Pay. And that's pretty cool. So now you'll be able to spend your Bitcoin anywhere that Apple Pay is accepted. So it's not like full-on adoption of Apple with Bitcoin, but it is a huge step in the right direction. And because it's Apple, they're super innovative, so I'm sure we'll see something in the near future. But anyway, the last question then is, should I buy Bitcoin for $50,000? Where are we going next? Nobody asked, but here's what I think. Let me be as objective as possible here because yes, I love Bitcoin, but I'm not gonna tell everybody, go buy it, it's great. Yeah, it's amazing, it's nothing bad's gonna happen because there are price risks. And the truth is, Bitcoin will crash again. The price will be manipulated again. But here's the difference between the next one and the ones we've had in the past. Because in the past, Bitcoin's market cap was a lot lower, which meant that people with tens of millions of dollars, a relatively low amount of money, could technically manipulate the price. But this time around, we have corporate and institutional money with billions of dollars, and now the market cap is much higher than it ever was before. And for me anyway, one of my fears with my portfolio is that I'm afraid of selling off my initial principal equity or my initial principal investment, which is what I always tell people. Sell off what you first invested, which for me is about $100,000 of all this money. That way you have your initial investment back and the rest is kind of play money. So if you lose it, who cares, right? But I'm terrified of doing that because it seems like we are hitting this S-curve adoption phase of technology where we're kind of on the precipice, where right around the corner where some huge catalyst is gonna be announced tomorrow or next week, like, hey, there's a Bitcoin ETF now, and the price would go sky high, exponentially greater than it is right now, at least relatively quickly. So that is the downside to exiting Bitcoin. But there's also an upside to all of this, which is that institutional and corporate money, billions and billions of dollars, means that it makes it that much more difficult for the traditional whales of the crypto sphere to manipulate the price because there's that much more money in the space to begin with. So unless we get some corporate collusion on a crazy massive level where Elon Musk's gonna be like, yo, Tim Cook, let's go buy some Bitcoins together, I just don't see the price of Bitcoin crashing 90% or more like it has in the past, just because there's that much more money now. But we can have the price of Bitcoin crash to as low as $30,000 a coin, which is where it looks like right now the support levels are at. Or maybe we could go as low as $15,000 a coin. Nobody knows. But long term, and when I say long term, I mean like 5 to 10 years from now, so it's more like midterm because that's not a long time from now, people are gonna be like, you got any more of those $50,000 Bitcoins laying around anywhere? Because the price is probably going to be unrecognizable from the levels that it's at today. So if it were me and I was starting all over again, this is what I would do. I would allocate fancy word, a portion of my paycheck, however often I got paid, and dollar cost average into Bitcoin over a long period of time. Or if I was, somebody who had a little bit more money and I had 10% that I could just throw away and put into Bitcoin and not care if I lost a ton of money or had a lot of volatility, then I would do that in addition to dollar cost averaging into it as well. But it just really depends on how much you value your dollar and how much risk you can take, as long as it doesn't affect your lifestyle and there's no difference. But long term, I think that Bitcoin is going to continue to crush every other asset class. But don't just listen to me. This is just one guy's opinion and just one perspective. Don't forget to grab up to $250 worth of free Bitcoin using this BlockFi code right here. And you can grab up to 2 free stocks from Webull. By depositing $100, you'll get 2 free stocks, both of which can be valued up to $1,850 each. Link is down below. And if you want to track those stocks and how they're growing, you can find that spreadsheet down below in my Patreon. Love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you back here on Monday and Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. And what a crazy time to be alive. It's like you're seeing these dominoes fall in real time, just like we talked about 10 years ago, except now it's happening. What a time to be alive. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.